Hi, I'm ever-changing butterfly bringing to you Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we'll discuss the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD. In today's podcast, I'll have one of my good friends, Natalie, reading Lauren's answers to the questions that I asked her about her life with NLD. Natalie will read Lauren's answers to the questions, and then I will read my answers to the same questions. In addition, we will discuss the strengths and challenges that people have with NLD. And we will be discussing the social situations that people have with NLD. So, Natalie will start off with introducing where Lauren is from and who Lauren is.
Hello, I am Lauren Sangster, and I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada.
All right, thank you for doing that. And I'll introduce myself as well. I am Ever-Changing Butterfly, and you know me as the podcast author, so that's me. And then we'll go back to Lauren, and she can give us a little bit of information about when she was diagnosed with that NLD.
So I was diagnosed with NLD at age 15 in grade 10 when my school had me assessed.
All right. And let's see. So for me, I was diagnosed when I was 19 with NLD, and for me, I was born with it, and then for Lauren, she, do you know what caused it?
I don't know what caused it, but I always knew something was wrong with me. I struggled tremendously with math, science, and social cues. I had difficulty making friends and always felt like the odd one out.
Yes, you may be different from other people, but that doesn't mean there is something bad about you or wrong with you. Yes, there are many things different about other people who don't have NLD, but that's all right because that's what makes you who you are. I'm just saying that because I don't like that Lauren said Ron, there, your brain is just wired differently. There's nothing wrong about you. I just thought that was not the right word to use. So, in my opinion. So the next question is, how do you feel about having NLD, Lauren?
Well, I'm 21 now, and I've learned to live with it. I'm okay with having NLD, but I hate how I have very little social skills still.
Yeah, I honestly can understand that. So my answer to this question is, I honestly don't know how to describe what it's like to have NLD to someone who doesn't have it, but I'll do my best. It feels like I'm mentally blind, and even though I can physically see, because I can't describe to someone what it's like to have NLD. I don't want anyone else to have it because I know how challenging it is to go through life having it. I have to remind myself often that NLD is something I have and it's not me. Not everything that I have a challenge with is tied to NLD, even though sometimes and oftentimes I do think it is. This means that it isn't always my fault that something doesn't come naturally. It's NLD's fault. I think that's kind of what I was just saying. I hope that explanation made sense to you. By you, I mean my podcast listeners. So for Lauren, what differences or challenges do you struggle with?
I struggle with many things. Some of my biggest struggles are reading sarcasm. It's impossible for me to draw a pie chart. I have virtually no sense of direction, and when I have to drive somewhere new, I have to have someone drive me there as a practice run, and then I must drive it over and over, but I'll still usually forget it instantly after. I struggle with understanding what someone wants of me, meaning I need to be instructed to do something bluntly. I find it hard to take hints. This has gotten me in trouble at work before. I struggle with multitasking. It is impossible for me to use mirrors in my vehicle due to poor visual spatial. I have to open the door when backing up. There are more, but it could probably fill 10 pages.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I also struggle with multitasking. I actually just had an episode about that with my podcast. So, um, yes, I do and have talked about many of my struggles already on this podcast. So I probably don't have to repeat them. But if you do want a refresher, I struggle with doing mental math, reading social cues, knowing when to stop talking, doing sports, and fine motor skills like tying shoelaces or shuffling cards. Um, those are just a few things that I struggle with. If I were to name all of them, we might be here all day. And like what Lauren said. So the next question was, does your family help with the challenges that she experiences?
My family does not really help much. Well, my mom tries to understand and be helpful, but she just gets frustrated. My dad doesn't really seem to believe it's a real thing, even after I got the diagnosis from school and the children's hospital assessment. He thinks it's just an excuse for me to be quote unquote stupid or annoy him.
Yeah, when I read that, that kind of came as a shock to me when I saw that answer from Lauren. So this is my response to that. Yes, my family does definitely try to help me with my challenges. My mom, dad, and brother have been angels in trying to help me with my learning challenge. Um, they have been really dedicated in helping me in any way they can ever since I was diagnosed. Actually, they did even before I was diagnosed, but after they knew why I was having challenges with so many things, they were relieved because now they knew why. Now that big question mark in their mind could disappear because they had the answers. I'm sorry that Lauren's family doesn't help her like mine does, because I can only imagine how challenging it would be if I didn't have any help. Actually, I can imagine because I know when I was in college and before I had my accommodations for NLD and before my mom was helping me and before I was diagnosed with NLD, it was very challenging those first 2 years of college. It was like, I'm not getting straight A's anymore like I was in high school. What is happening here? So, you know, I think I know what it's like. Um, you know, I was going to say, I don't want to even begin what it would be like to not have help. And I was going to say, I'm truly sorry that Lauren has to go through life without having help from the very people that should be giving it to her without a single doubt in their mind of why she needs it. Her dad should not be thinking that NLD is an excuse for her to be, in his words, stupid or to annoy him. He should be helping her in any way possible and in every way that he can. This is what my parents do, and my brother, and my friends. I mean, it's like, now what, you need a support circle when you have something like this. It's just, it's just what you need. Um, and hopefully maybe that will change it for her. So let's see. The next one is, are there any gifts you have from NLD?
I'm not really sure if I have any gifts from my NLD, but I do have an excellent verbal memory. Especially when I was a child, years before I knew I had NLD, I could recite entire movie soundtracks after watching it once. Same with playing music on the piano and remembering the song perfectly. I can't read music, of course, and I play by ear. NLD also makes me very rigid, which is helpful at work as I am a correctional officer and it comes in handy when dealing with the inmates. Though sometimes I can almost be too strict. The inmates don't like me because they know they won't get away with anything when I'm on shift.
So yeah, Lauren, you just stated the gifts you have because of having NLD, even if you're not aware of it. I mean, I knew that, I think I can relate to that too. Before I knew I had NLD, wasn't, I, you know, I don't think I was really aware of the fact that I had good verbal memory and audio memory, but now I'm more aware of it. I have ever since I was diagnosed. Um, but yeah, I have, just like you, I have very good verbal and audio memory. I remember when I took my tests and got the results, my audio and verbal memory were on the 99 percentile, which is basically as high as you can get. And it's, like I pay attention very closely to detail, which is weird that people with NLD do that. And like an example with that is, my mom has a podcast and I was helping her with that. And I think I was editing some of the videos for it. And I was noticing with the description for it, something was wrong. And so I was just wanting to make sure everything was perfect for it. And, basically just making sure it was perfect and, little tiny details. And I don't think someone without NLD would do that. And then also, I'm really good at, remembering people's names and faces. I remember giving an example, and I think it was the very first podcast episode, where when I would go to the summer camps, I could remember everybody's names because I went to there so many times. Or, like you were saying with music, you have really good memory with that. I have really good memory with that also. And with movies, with my brother, we can recite scenes from movies back and forth to each other, and we kind of have fun with that because we do it in the characters, the voices of the characters. So that's fun. So the next question is there something you wish the world knew more about NLD?
Well, I often wish I didn't have NLD because I always have and likely always will be the odd one out. I never get invited to parties because I always get way too drunk because obviously who feels anxious when they're drunk? I also struggle to connect with others. I crave some sort of relationship, not necessarily romantic, but just a real best friend. Sure, at work I laugh with my coworkers, In our line of work, the bond is very strong, but when I'm not at work, I'm alone. People, I think, feel comfortable talking to me for some reason. So a lot of them will vent their problems to me, which I don't mind. I like trying to help people. But having NLD, I think, causes me to miss out on a lot of possible friendships because I overshare or miscue. I hate how clumsy I am. Ironically, I played many sports, including hockey, for all my childhood right until I was 18. So it is possible. I actually was a very good goalie in hockey, though it took years to get good. I skated and I moved very oddly, and people would make fun of me.
Yeah, so I can definitely relate to what you mentioned, Lauren. I wish people knew more about NLD and what it was like to have it, because it's not a very well known learning challenge. Um, I wish they also knew that it belongs to beyond the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM, because it is a legitimate learning challenge. And if it's on there, you get more accommodations more easily when you're in school. Um, and people, including me, do literally suffer because they have it, not just in school, but in life. Um, I know that may seem like I'm exaggerating when I'm saying that, but I'm not really, because my life is challenging. Just, you know, what, you know, going off script a little bit here, but it, I think when I was saying that, for me, it's, it's not always challenging to have NLD, but I think it is most of the time. And, um, you know, wanting to paint the picture for people of what it is like to have it is good, because then they can have that picture in their mind. And if they have that picture, then hopefully they know how to help that person better. So let's see, the next question is, do you ever feel like it is a burden? Or do you ever wish you didn't have it?
I often feel like it is a burden. I always felt so stupid in school. Even before I was diagnosed, I was on individual personal plan, or IEPP, in math and science, right from the third grade to grade 12. I always felt the teachers didn't really know how to help me. My school was very small and rural and didn't have many options for kids with learning issues. I spent hours crying after school because of math. I actually enjoyed school because of the routine, but math was a whole different ballgame and I hated it. I hated feeling stupid when I and the other kids on IPPs had to leave the room to go to do different math. It was humiliating.
Oh my goodness, I can definitely relate to that. So yes, I do sometimes, feel like it was a burden and wish I didn't have it. But then I realized that if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be me. I like who I am, but I do wish some things were easier for me. Ever since I was diagnosed with NLD, I've been working to make my life easier, because I know deep down that it can be. And I want it to be. I know what it's like to be humiliated or made fun of by someone, because that happened to me when I was in Girl Scouts. I was made fun of for the way I was dancing at a concert my troop was attending. I remember that it took a few minutes for me to realize that they were making fun of me because I have NLD. Um, I process things slower than other people do. But once I knew what was happening, I just kept dancing because I didn't care that they were making fun of me, because I was having fun. when I think back on this, I realize that I might have made a different choice now, but that's only because I now know that I have NLD and didn't then. If it happened again, I would stand up for myself, and by doing that, the same thing I did then, because I showed them that I didn't care what they thought about me. So, in that example, I think I kind of said saying, hey, I don't care if you're laughing at me because you don't like my dancing. I'm doing something that I want to do. Um, and, you know, it took me longer, like I said, it took me longer to process it because people with NLD process things more slowly because of how their brain is wired. Um, but yeah, I can relate to Lauren. Um, so let's see. The next one is, what would you tell others who have NLD as a motivation for when they get discouraged?
For motivation to others with NLP, I would say do what you love no matter what. I never thought I would succeed in my career as a correctional officer, but I love it. And yes, NLP does make some aspects of it challenging, but it also gives me strength too. Literally everyone said I couldn't do it, and I did. If you're a kid in high school, I personally found college much better. I excelled in my criminal justice program. Yes, I found the tactics class, which is learning combat techniques to control inmates and defend yourself, very hard because I'm so clumsy, but I did it with hard work, and that's what you need to do. Just do what you love and don't listen to anyone who says you can't. I found a mentor in college who helped me tremendously. You will find someone who believes in you despite your learning disabilities, but more importantly, you will succeed and believe in yourself. It just takes time. It just takes the time to learn your weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah, I definitely really relate to that, and I like your answer that you gave. So my answer is, don't give up. Look at how far you have come, reminding yourself of how many things used to be challenging for you compared to now. I do that quite often, and it works for me. I love to say to myself, I've come so far, I can't stop now. I also say, remember all the hills you've climbed and battles you've won, because you are one strong cookie. And one more thing, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I know that's not my saying, but it's a good one. Alrighty, let's see. So the next question is, what would you tell people who don't know they have NLD but suspect they might?
For people who suspect that they have NLD, I would say to find a psychologist or counselor who knows NLD to help you get diagnosed and get the guidance you need. After I was diagnosed, I was kind of just left to my own devices, and I feel that if I had an expert to help me, things would have been way easier.
I definitely agree with you, Lauren. I would tell them that they should follow that burning hunch that is inside themselves, telling them there's something different about me from everyone else in my family. I urge them to get tests done by a psychologist so they can discover if they have a learning challenge. That's what I did. Um, and then the next several questions are about the challenges that people have who have NLD in social situations. So the first one is, what are some of the things that are challenging for you when making a new friend?
When making a new friend, it is challenging for me to know what is acceptable to share at what stages of the friendship. I tend to overshare by trying to make conversation and end up talking about myself because I don't know what else to talk about, or I ask too much about them, trying to counter talking about myself. In other words, I cannot do small talk. I tend to have the best luck with people who are quote unquote different like me. I feel more comfortable around other oddballs, but to be honest, animals are my friends. I have a small farm consisting of various fowls, cows, and pigs, my golden retriever. However, I still feel as if I'm missing human interaction outside of work. I'm also extremely anxious and nervous with new people and places, even more so in the 2.5 years I've been a correctional officer. I can really only talk to the other corrections officers who are odd like me.
So I think I can relate to that too. I also often tend to overshare in friendships because of the same thing that Lauren shared. I don't know when it's appropriate to share certain things, like if I have NLD, or not if, but that I have NLD. I tend to probably not ask enough about the other person when I'm talking to them because sometimes I forget that I'm not the only one that should be contributing to the conversation. When this happens, I try to take a breath and say something like, enough about me, what about you? How are you doing? That usually helps the other realize that I was aware of the fact that I was talking too much. It also shows them that I do want to learn more about them and that I care about them too. That's just something that I do. And I also think in my mind, okay, Jennifer, you're talking too much. Stop talking. Let them talk. And then I asked Lauren if she had any really memorable stories that she was okay with sharing with the listeners.
Yeah, I have a story that might be interesting. At work, an inmate who I now know was joking with me. He was roughhousing with another inmate. I told him to stop as they're kind of like children and play fights often turn into real fights. So they did. One of them, who loves to joke around with officers, later was hiding in his cell. So when I walked by to go around, he jumped out at me and yelled, "Boo." Well, whether it was the NLD that makes it hard for me to understand a joke, or the corrections officer in me that has me hypervigilant and react fast, I grabbed that guy by the arms and slammed him into the ground so hard he almost broke his elbow. After I had him cuffed, he said, "Jesus, miss, I was just messing with you." He was okay, and he got written up for his childish behavior that resulted in him getting slammed by a girl in front of all of his buddies. I wasn't happy that day to have to do a use of force report and explain that I thought he was being serious and coming at me, but looking back, it's a funny story, I think. Having NLD is one thing, and being a correctional officer with NLD is a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a memorable story for you, Lauren. Um, I can remember many times in my life when I was growing up and couldn't tell when my dad or brother were teasing me. I actually talked about this in my episode about multitasking and taking things too literal. Um, Oftentimes I couldn't tell because they kept such a straight face while doing it, which made it seem like they were being serious to me. This makes sense to me because people with NLD do tend to take things too literally. Um, but now I've tried to tease my family back. They just need to return it to me so I can keep practicing. um, so I think we'll wrap up the podcast and thank Lauren for answering the questions. I would like to share a song with you that I got inspired to share because it relates to this episode. The name of the song is Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars. The song relates to this episode because when I asked Lauren if she ever wished she didn't have NLD, she said no. I think she gave the right answer because it makes you who you are. This song encourages you to love yourself for the way you already are. I would encourage you to listen to this song if you haven't heard it before, and even if you have, because you may get something new out of it that you didn't get from the last time you listened to it. As I wrap up today, there are a couple of things that I'd like to share with you. I have recently created a website and Facebook and Instagram account for my podcast. The name of the website is www.livingwithnld.com. I'll leave that link in the description for you. Remember, I have also recently created a resource page and a list of 25 things that neurotypical people can do to help people with NLD out a little bit more than they may already be doing. This will be on the website I just created. Here is an app that you may find helpful for you. Calm is an app that helps you sleep better by having a variety of stories that you can listen to as you fall asleep. It even has videos that help you learn how to meditate and relax. When you sleep better, it's easier for you to focus on everything else in your day. Hey, I recently learned about a nonprofit that I would really like to support. It's the NVLD project. In addition to doing research on NVLD and working to get it back on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, they provide support groups for those with NVLD. You can find the NVLD project at www.nvld.org. This is where I often turn for those real-life stories I use in these podcasts. All proceeds will go towards the NVLD project. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also, see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. In conclusion, I would like to hear from you. Please let me know if you know anyone with NVLD or NLD, they are the same thing, just a different acronym, that I could interview for this podcast. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do have the living experience of having it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning some new things today. Bye.